Welcome to Talk Design Podcast, the space where creativity meets conversation. I'm Adrian Ramsey, your host, and as someone deeply entrenched in the world of design, I'm thrilled to introduce you to the minds that inspire me, in the hope that they will spark something special within you too. From a design past crafting women's swimwear to pushing the boundaries of performance sportswear, from mountaineering to international yachting, to implementing systematic innovation solutions that transcend boundaries in aerospace industry. My heart remains rooted in architecture, and exploring the emotional tapestry woven by built spaces is my fascination. My journey in design has been what can only be described as a life of design. I want to thank you for lending me your ears. I'm eager to embark on this next episode together. My guest on Talk Design today is Robyn Hills. Now, Robyn and I go quite a few years back. Robyn's a photographer. She is a commissioned portrait photographer, and that's the tip of the iceberg of who Robyn is. But that's how a lot of people know her. You know, she's a published author. She exhibits. She's award-winning with her photography. And once you get through all that piece, then there's the real Robyn that lurks underneath it all, who is a helicopter pilot. And beyond being a helicopter pilot, she is a property developer and investor. She is big on charity, and she is one of my favorite people. She's got so much energy. She's got so much, I'm going to say pizzazz, which she brings to everything she does. So Robyn, welcome to Talk Design.
Thank you.
It is so fabulous to have you here. I mean, we go and have lunch and we do those things and hang out, but it's so fabulous to actually get you to share your story with all the listeners. And, you know, you have a very international outlook on life, which I absolutely love. You're an adventurer. You put the hard yards in. You're a worker. You enjoy it. You soak the best out of life, just pulling it out of it. I love that about you. Yeah, lucky. Eh? I want to kick off with my usual question, which is, you know, you were this kid, this little girl running around causing some sort of mischief, almost guaranteed.
No, I was a goody two-shoes as a kid, absolutely.
Tell the story.
I think I was quiet. We were raised in a very conservative upbringing, but I always loved art, anything to do with art. And I was about 12, I think. I announced to the world that I was going to earn a living out of art. And of course, my very well-meaning parents went, no. The only rich artists are dead ones. And I went, that's their problem, not mine. And I can do this. If I'm going to do something for 5 out of every 7 days of the week to earn a living, and well, I'm going to do something to enjoy it. So
I love it. Well, the bit before you were 12, where were you born? Like, where did you start this? Where did you live? Where did you grow up?
So born in Toowoomba, Queensland. So a regional town up on the top of a mountain range. Well, mountain range for Australia.
For Australia, yeah. Large hills. Large hills.
And then as a kid, we moved to the Sunshine Coast with my dad's work and to Nambour, a lovely little town called Nambour. And so we were still regional because Nambour's the hinterland area. And yeah, so I grew up there, left school at 14 because I was kind of out of there. I was okay at school, nothing flash. Did really well at art and English, but the rest of it could take or leave. But I wanted to just get on with it.
Just get on with work.
Yeah, I just wanted to get on with life. And so, yeah, left school. And despite saying I'm going to do something that's artistic, my parents said you can leave school as long as you got a job. And so I walked up and down the main street of Nambour, got 3 job offers. And then also the local accountancy firm asked any of the students that had done bookkeeping and typing back in those days.
Typing, nice.
Yes. So I actually got the job at the accountant's office. So left school on Friday, started work on Monday in an accountant's office. That'll show them that was creative.
Yeah. How's the accountant's office still going? Did they get over having you in there?
I left because I was very much a square peg in a round hole. I did okay. It turned out I was quite good at letter writing because I was good at English. But yeah, sending me out on audits to endlessly count numbers of receipts and stuff like that, not so much.
Not
But
so much interest, but you're actually really good with process and you're really good with sticking to things.
Yeah. It was really valuable because I learnt how to set up a proper professional looking profit and loss statement. I knew what assets and liabilities were, balance sheet, whether people were making a profit. If you're paying tax is a good thing because it means you've actually made a heap of profit. Don't pay too much tax.
Don't pay more than you need to.
Yeah, but someone's got to build schools and pay for roads and stuff like that. So it's a contribution to the community.
Yeah. That's really interesting, eh? So with your parents, did you get a financial education or did you really get the big push when you ended up in that accountant's office and like everything you do, you just soak it out of it, you're a sponge that just fills up?
The education I got from my parents, they often openly talked about finances and stuff like that, which was good. But my parents built houses.
Right.
So they would go and find the latest subdivision, buy a block of land. It had to be the one facing north or northeast. The slope had to be to the north and northeast. And then Dad would actually sit at the kitchen table and draw house plans. And so then they'd find a builder, go through all of that process, getting the quoting, and then build the house. So however many months it took to build a house back then. And I went through all of this as kids. And then Dad would paint the house himself because they were trying to save money. And Mum would sew all their own curtains. Us kids would have to come home from school and water the brand new grass up and running. So every couple of years, then, we sold. And the whole process would go rent for a year. The whole process would start all over again. So the number of schools I went to, the number of houses I've lived in, I've kind of lost track of. But yeah, when I built my first house, so I bought my first block of units, was my first investment apart from gold.
Went for a block of units.
Well, no, I bought my first investment, which was gold at 16.
Yep.
And I'd already been going to investment seminars and stuff. And the people that I was listening to always said buy multiples, because if one tenant moves out of one house, who's going to pay your mortgage? Whereas if you buy 4 and one tenant moves out, there's still 3 of them paying your mortgage. And I went, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So at 22, I went and bought a block of units and renovated them.
I love it.
And so as a 22-year-old, who knows how to do painting stuff? Who knows how to engage contractors? Like that would be a pretty steep learning curve, but it felt very much like I'd already done it lots of times. And then I was 25 or 6 and I actually built my first house. And I was saying to the builder, how high are we going to build the slab off the ground? Oh, no, we're just going to it's a flat block. We'll put it straight on. No, it's the Sunshine Coast. You've got to build it a couple of bricks up because of the amount of water that we get. And there's got to be a lip when you pour the slab of the garage. You've got to actually, so the garage door closes down on the lip and the rain doesn't drive under it. Oh, no, we're just going to pour it all. No.
Like, 22.
Yeah, how does someone know all that? Yeah, but it was by osmosis from hanging around with my parents doing all this building.
That's so fabulous. That's so fabulous. Yeah, by osmosis and also by being hands-on and part of the process, because there's jobs that need to be done in your family unit.
Yep.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you learned that, then you go to the accountant's office and you probably got the formal kind of piece of actually, as you said, how to present things there.
I'm very good at making things look good.
Yeah.
So,
I know.
So if I can see something and see how it gets put together, I go, oh, okay, so I can replicate that.
Yeah.
And so that was a really interesting period. And then, of course, as soon as I went into my own business, I had to present a business plan to the bank to get funding. I had to, make sure I was profitable. This was like well before the days of Xero and accounting packages.
So, yeah, with that, so take us back a little bit. You're in the accountant's office. That gets to the point where you're not going to be there any longer. You go from there to
Oh, so while I was at the accountants, I had a Saturday morning job as a florist because I was artistic.
Yeah.
I joined a camera club. At nighttime, I was doing a bit of part-time work as an artist for a travel agency, doing hand drawings,
Yeah.
for stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So there was art all around me, except at the accountant's office. But yeah, at the accountant's office, I still took it as a challenge to be creative. So I had very long brown hair. So for 30 days straight, I wore my hair in a different style.
For 30 days straight. This is one of the things that I absolutely love about Robyn. If you're not watching on YouTube, go to YouTube, have a look at her hair. I love that I'll be going to meet her somewhere, and it is always a visual surprise to see what she's done with her hair or how she's dressed. It's fun. It's so exciting and it's so refreshing. And, today she knew I was going to wear a hat because I wear my Stetsons. But then outside of that, she's like, shall I wear a hat? Shall I do this? And last night at probably 11 o'clock or something, I'm going, just do your hair, do your hair. So come and have a look at Robyn's hair. I won't spoil it beyond that, but it's really fab. Like really, really
But every
cool.
year on my birthday, I change my hair.
Yeah.
For the whole year. So a month ago, it was purple and turquoise and geometric cut. And now, you'll have to check it out.
You have to check it out. Yeah. No, it is. It's fun. And this is the spirit that Robyn brings to everything she does. She brings this life, this energy, this enthusiasm. And I mean, we've worked on jobs together, and your ability to work with people, read people, and get the best out of people certainly is a testament to who you are. You went to the photography club, and did that spark the photography business?
Yeah, because I found with art, it was a very slow process. And with photography, it was very instant. And that was exciting. Like it's instant.
You're saying instant, but in those days you were shooting on film and it needed to be developed. And
yeah, there wasn't even a 1 hour film process around then. You had to send it off and wait a couple of days to get it back. But I'm so highly visual. Like before I even take the photo, I know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And so recording the actual photo is kind of more of a mechanical thing. Oh, there you go. There, yep, that's what I thought it would look like.
Yes.
And I know, I know when I've got it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the piece, isn't it? So did you study photography as such, or did you just
No, I run the camera club.
Yeah.
The guy that was running a photography studio and running a camera club one night a week or 1 month a week, one night a month, sorry.
Yeah.
And
so you might have gone more often.
Mate, he needed a bookkeeper at his photography studio. And I went, cool. So I turn up as an 18-year-old. What would I know about running a business? Well, let's give this a go because that's what you do. Anyhow, he promised to teach me photography. That kind of went not to plan. There was a suggestion of a dark room involved.
Yes. Not the plan. Yeah, it was a little more than photography.
And so off I went. But by then I was already, loving photography. And I went and worked on the Sunshine Coast's first film lab, 1 hour film processing lab. At the Big Pineapple. Here's some history.
Really?
Yeah. And so that was a really interesting process because I learnt if you didn't get the exposure right, you didn't get it on the print.
Right.
And that was a really critical part of capturing it well. So like people just hold up their phone these days and go, and all this amazing
phone does it. Yeah.
Computerization. But, the part for me that's fun with the phone is I actually think how I try to work out how it thinks to get what I want, not what it's just going to take. So that, yeah.
The Big Pineapple, I've got to tell people. So in Australia has an obsession with building things that are big. That probably comes from the American side of it, but things that are big. And you'll be driving along and there'll be a big banana. And people will, go, oh, are you going to Coffs Harbour? Yeah, well, we're just past the big banana. Or once you've gone past the big banana, we're X number of kilometres or miles. In the Sunshine Coast, there's a big pineapple because there was a lot of pineapple farms through there. And with the big pineapple, it's a landmark. And it was the road that took you from the beach to Nambour. And in fact, in the olden days, you couldn't just get to the beach. You had to go to Nambour and come out to the beach. You had to go inland to come out on a single road out before they opened up the rest of the beachside suburbs with roads. So we've got that. We've got the big moa. We've got the big prawn. And there's so many big, the big whatever it is. But it's a really Aussie thing, the big. I have a bit of a throw off at it because, of course, I'm a New Zealander, I'm a Kiwi. And so it's a bit like, oh, yeah, what's that going to be? The big jandal or the big thong or whatever it's going to be. Yeah.
There you go.
So Big Pineapple was the first 1 hour photo developing lab.
Sunshine Coast, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was really cool. So there I learned a lot about retail, a lot about marketing, how to get people, because we were brand new, like they had live on-site radio
broadcasts
live, TV ads, and being a photographer working in a film lab, we were quite often asked to go and photograph something for the company because we were on site. And so to see what they were doing with their advertising. So I mean, I just learn stuff from everyone and everything that I do.
Yes. The thing that what I love about that is because photography is a really technical business, not business, art, exposures and, film types and, how you're going to grade it. And even when you're not in the 1 hour photo thing, because that's machine driven more than anything, but when you're in the darkroom, like you're burning pieces of your photo and you're enhancing pieces, that's an art in itself beyond just taking a photo. There's the photographic, then there's all the bits that actually bring it to life after that.
Well, the actual print production is a whole nother craft.
So
I would understand what they were doing, but I never did that. I always understood that I had to do what my highest skills were and outsource as much as I could to
that master of leverage piece that you are, or the mistress of leverage, that thing of actually recognizing this is what you can do, and then who else do I need? Who else is going to complete the team to get the result? It's that again at such a young age is that's probably part of your DNA. I
think so, because I have a fabulous framer and rely heavily on them understanding me and what I do and my style. I can literally nearly drop something off and just go, do what I usually do. And this is for a client. This is kind of where I'm heading with it. And I'll just wave my hands around and off I go. And sometimes they ring me and go, can you just pop by and see such and such? But no. And it's fantastic to have such a great team with really quality work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally get that. So how old were you when you started your photography business?
I started photographing paid portrait sittings at 16. I photographed my first paid wedding at 17. And no one would give me a job.
No, too young.
I was too young and I was a girl. They had told me that several times.
Right.
Well, other studios, there was a cadetship going at the local newspaper. They went, you're the best candidate, but we're not going to give it to you because you're a girl. I'm like, you can't actually say that.
You could hardly sue them for loss of earnings now. But
well, it's probably a good move because most of the newspapers are closed down.
That's what I'm saying.
So I got sick of being rejected and I went, well, I'll show you. I'll just open my own studio. Watch this. And so commercial premises in Nambour, convinced this lovely old landlord to give me a lease, and then had to go and ask the bank manager for some funding. That was an interesting process.
At 18?
I was
20?
19, 20.
19. Okay. So you're down the bank at 20. Were women allowed bank accounts in those days?
Yeah. You're allowed to open a bank account.
Well, I asked that because I've got this fabulous client, and I reckon in the last 20 years it would be. She's very wealthy. She went to the bank, and she was moving from Sydney to here, so she went to open another account here. It might have been 25 years ago, but not that long ago. And they asked her to bring her husband in. Yeah. And she's like, what did you say?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, could you bring your husband in? Yeah.
asked to bring my father in. I was asked to bring my husband in. I've been, even the last lot of bank changes, only 15 years ago, unbeknownst to me, they actually put my account underneath my husband's portfolio. And I did not know for years until I was trying to unravel something. And I said, I don't understand. Like, where's the line of questioning going? I can answer whatever you like, but I'm not sure where this is. And then it finally unraveled. And I went, yeah, no, you're going to have to undo all of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And just assumed, an
Yep.
assumed position.
Didn't even ask.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look, thank goodness the world's spun a few times since then, because as say, like she was, doing a multi-million-dollar deal, but she had more than enough funds to be able to do her deal and collateral. And she's like, you said, what? What did you say? And she goes, my husband doesn't have anything to do with this. Nothing to do with my husband. This is, the money's my money and my name, and this is what you need to do. But yeah, just really fascinating. She tells the story so much better than I do, because what she said wasn't, she had to go back and apologize, and in writing to the bank. She didn't have to. She chose to. She decided it would be a smarter move after what she'd said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was asked a question recently, and it was, as an artist, how does International Women's Day affect you? And I went, hang on a minute. And I'm always betwixt with this women's stuff only, women's only stuff, because I'm in the Women's Pilots Association, I'm in the Business Women's Association, and now, we're talking about International Women's Day as an artist. And I went, and my husband always goes, well, we don't have a man's only club. And I went, yeah, okay, thank you for reminding me of that. There are so many men's everything.
We don't have to call it a club, we just do it.
Yeah. And so unless actually women are over here on our own, making our own voice and talking about stuff that actually affect us, we have to actually be a little bit separate to catch up, because here we are still talking about it. And yeah, that was really interesting to actually have to make that delineation. And when I first joined photography, I'd go to conferences and there'd be 97 male photographers and 3 females in the room, 2 of which were the wives, and I was the female photographer in business for myself. So it's...
Was that a benefit?
Well, no, I don't think so.
How did you make it into one?
I don't think I've always been very mindful of being me and not trying to point prove, or apart from watch me, I'll open the studio, but not point proving in that I'm a male or a female way. I just do stuff because it interests me and I want to do it, and off I go. And whether I'm male or female, I should be able to just do what I do. If I make a bad decision, well, then that's my decision.
Yep.
And if I make a great decision, it's probably because I work pretty hard at it.
You make a profit. I find it very interesting, this, your internal drive and self-worth, and your ability to recognize yourself when you were so young. And I think, obviously your parents created that environment that gave you that platform, that you went, yeah, this is me. You saw yourself in being able to do what you wanted to do, and not do what they maybe even expected you to do. So, the lovely rebel behavior that you have. And there is a little piece of, I'll prove to you I can do it, but that's not the motivating factor. It's just a nod to it at different points. So I can imagine, getting commissioned work when you're so young, and around you, not that there would have been hundreds of photographers necessarily that had studios, but actually, people would have walked in and said, well, where's your dad? When they came in the studio, thinking that you were helping out or something at that age.
In my saving grace, I actually looked about 27.
Right.
And I dressed very conservatively and very professionally because, well, I'm now a professional business person. I should dress professionally. So, yeah, I looked much older than I actually was.
Right. And so that shifted the radar a little bit as well.
Yeah. And I would turn up like to photograph a wedding, and people would just come up to me and ask me what about the day and what this and what that, because I just looked like I was in charge. And
You are.
okay, I'll just make up an answer that I think this is what's going on. Sure.
Yeah, okay.
And I was very good at logistics.
Yes.
I would always go and talk to the car driver and go, okay, so we're going to go here, here, and here. This is the timing. And I would always make sure that I was letting them know that we're going to just need a couple more minutes, but I'll make it up at the next location. I'll get you to, because everyone booked everyone for X amount of hours and time.
Yes.
And they always respected me that I ran on time for them. And I got the bride and groom to the wedding reception on time, where there's 100 meals sitting waiting to be brought out on the table on time. Yeah. So it was a respect for the other team, the collaboration. And I got loads and loads of referrals from all of the other vendors in the industry because I was professional and nice to them, and hopefully also produced lovely photography.
Well, beyond that, also, you made their lives easier.
Yeah.
You were a help to them, and they, you didn't need to be. You were the photographer. You were there for the bride and groom and the
one bride, because I've always made a point of, how did you come to find me?
Yeah.
And they went, oh, we're just sick of hearing about you. We just have to book you. And I went, sorry, what? And they went, well, we went to the reception place, we went to the florist, we went to the car, we went to the church, and they all went
fantastic. Yeah. And that your logistic abilities, your ability with logistics is, it's a real strength. And with that, I think that what it brings is certainty. And with certainty, it allows you to be a leader, the leader you are, and also to take the steps forward, which is, it shows up in every aspect of what you do in life. So we've got a photography studio. We're running that. It's going great. People are recommending you. And what happened next? Because at some point, you decided to be a helicopter pilot. You've decided to do all kinds of things with life.
So
take us on a bit more journey.
6.5 days a week, several nights of the week doing photography. It just exploded and went super well. And I learned very quickly that I could buy nice clothes, drive a nice car, go on a nice holiday, but that was never probably going to get me wealth. And I wanted more. And I knew to build a good asset base and to do the things I wanted to in life, I had to do it another way. And so that was where the property portfolio work started kicking in. And so out of my first, it's called a reno flip now, but back then it was just, wow, someone actually bought a whole block of flats and renovated them.
Yeah.
She was 22. How old did you say she was?
Yeah, I think the only time I ever did that was with my buddy I was 40.
Yeah. So I made more money on that reno flip in a couple of months than I did in a whole year of photography. Like, okay, that worked well. And so I've always done multiples. So I've built blocks of apartments. I've bought blocks of apartments. I've bought the whole block, renovated them, and then strata titled them all. So sold them off individually. Sometimes I'll renovate the whole block. And I've just finished a block of 5, where we did a cosmetic reno with the tenants still in them, which is helpful.
Was that smart business? Yep.
And so we just, 1 week at a time, not too disruptive, but, they got paint 1 week, and the next week they got light fittings, and the next week they got curtains. And finally, when we'd finished all the yard work and the driveways and everything, then they got new carpet. So they're all happy. Yeah. So now it's being sold as a whole block. Yeah. So, but I've chopped the block of land off the back, subdivided it, got a DA and a BA to build another duplex on the back. So it's still a multiple. Yeah.
So tell me about this. So I was talking to just recently, he hasn't come out on the podcast yet, but a guy called Mike Roberts. He's the Converse cowboy. He has about a $40 million portfolio of real estate in America. And his turning point was that he went to some event, a Rich Dad, Poor Dad teaser event. From that teaser event, ended up, I think, going to another event that cost him a few $100s. And then next thing, he bought the big coaching piece of, Rich Dad, Poor Dad's, Robert Kiyosaki's program. And from that, he's got let's say about a $40 million portfolio of properties with, over 200 properties in that portfolio. And he's got some really interesting buying strategies, which if anybody wants to hear them when I drop the podcast, go and listen. And beyond that, though, he followed the program. So you started with a program that was on your father's kitchen table or your parents' kitchen table and lived a program to start with. And then when you bought the block of 4, or built the first house, actually, it'd be the first thing, wasn't it? So
no, the block of 4 was first.
The block of 4 was first. So did the block of 4 first. Then with that, who was guiding you? Divine intervention? Or
I always went to a lot of seminars because of having left school at 14. I had no education, so I had to constantly seek out people to ask where to find the information. And before Google, that was a little tougher.
Yeah, a lot tougher, not a little tougher.
Yeah, but I always asked questions. I will endlessly ask questions, and I kind of work on the process of I'll keep asking questions until people say, enough, Robyn. Or then if I think that's maybe enough questions, I'll go, who else should I talk to?
Yeah. One of the things with you is you ask really intelligent questions and you don't ask the same question twice. If you get an answer, I've worked with you, if you get an answer, you go, okay. When you would ask about it again you'd say, is that applicable here? And that would be in another project. So on this project, we did this, da, 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 da. So would that be applicable in this project? Would that work the same? That's your, so it's not like, well, what do I do now? It's like, I learned this, it worked, we tested it, it worked. Now from that, what could it be next? Is it a rule or is it just a situational event?
We build on that and make it even more fabulous.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
I love collaborating with you because you push me. It's like, should we have some gold taps? Okay. What about some gold wallpaper? What
can we play with?
If it's a penthouse renovation, well, then you've got to make it. And I use this word because I got it from you. You've got to make it penthouse plush.
Yes, but this is true. It's situational to a place, and who are you attracting, and what is their wants and ego, and not ego in a bad way, but their status. What are they getting to? And I remember that first job we worked on. The building, it was a penthouse. The building, it was a 3-4 star building at its best, but what we were offering was like something that was 5-star within it. So we needed people to embrace the view, which wouldn't be hard, that's simple. But what we needed people to do was come in through a fairly average entrance, a fairly average lift well, and then come into the apartment and forget the journey they'd just had.
So there's a whole nother story to that. So I got on the committee while I was there.
I know.
And we renovated the foyer.
To sell the apartment.
And to help everyone, it was a 125 apartment complex on the beachfront.
Yeah.
They're not making more beachfront land. And so all I had to do was speak up and say, hey, you guys need to add value to your asset. There's money in the sinking fund. Let's use it wisely. We're not going to overspend, but let's just plush up the foyer. And then because the building was painted Mediterranean mango, orangey yellow color.
Yeah.
And so I did an artist impression in Photoshop of the building painted white with grey and black trim.
Looks great,
And when I was for sale, I just happened to leave all of these beautifully printed photographs on the kitchen bench. And of course, everybody that was a sticky big in the apartment complex came to look at my open house.
And sure then enough, the building ended up.
At the next time the building had to be painted, it is now my color scheme. So yeah, single-handedly, I feel like I actually got 125 apartments repainted.
You added value to the complex beyond the apartment. The apartment was just that it added value to that as well. But it
and also it was the highest price sale in the complex. So, when you add value here, you raise everyone else with you. So I'm very mindful of the work that I do in apartment buildings, that it's very respectful and appropriate for the complex in total.
I often use Robyn as an example to people about having a wonderful ability to flip apartments. Most people wouldn't have the drive or the knowledge that she does to do it. However, her ability to flip apartments, and often not even take them to market to do it, she'll market them herself, and doesn't take it through a real estate agent to do it. But she's an absolute expert at playing with the spaces and then not being daunted by what those outcomes might take to do, and being really creative within the limitations that an apartment building gives you. And also as a developer, and when I call you renovator in this piece of it, or redeveloper, when you're redeveloping somebody else's thing, the ability to not overspend on things that aren't going to bring value, to get really honed in on, this is a value proposition, and if this one's not quite so good, then how can we make something better that takes the sting out of the one that isn't perfect? We can't move that column, we can't do that. What can we do with it? And then what can we do around it that makes it fade away? How can we make it better? Yeah.
Well, and like the lovely one that we worked on together with the turquoise tiles.
Yeah.
There were 4 bathrooms with beautiful, high quality Italian turquoise tiles. And I hate pulling out stuff that's in good condition and really beautiful. But yeah.
There was more than $100,000 worth of bathrooms in that apartment that would have come, you could have made them look different. Well, we did make them look different, but you could have taken those tiles out and you would have spent your $100,000 and you would have just ended up with a different tiled bathroom.
Yeah. But what I love about traveling, and because I love traveling, I love going to buildings and architecture and fashion and getting inspiration for everywhere. And when I saw these tiles, and I remember I said, can't we do the Elvis Peacock room? And so we'd actually been to Elvis's only a little bit before that. And I went, oh, it's the Elvis Peacock room. We've already got the color. Yeah. And so putting peacock wallpaper and bringing it all together. And then from the previous, and quite often I'll save something from the previous project and bring it with me. And sure enough, I actually had a 1970s Art Deco brass peacock wall hanging that came straight into this beautiful Art Deco bathroom.
Look, again, that place, I love the design side of, you've got these limitations, and then, so how do you use those limitations as, as an asset? How do you turn them into an asset? And that place was a classic example of that, of taking all these different points that it had and going, okay, we need more value. We need to, but we don't want to spend any more money than we have to, because of the fact that the spent money is spent profit. And in the renovation, remodeling type business or genre, you've got to spend it where you've got to spend it, and then everything else has to be some way of adding its own personality and bringing it forward, and not running with the pack, so that you stand out from the pack, is another really important thing.
Yeah, that was something that you explained to me. I guess I'd been doing a little bit of that as well.
It's who you are as a person, just by the way. You don't run with the pack either. So it wasn't a hard concept for you to grab.
And I guess if it's a product for a price and it's mid-range and everyone else is living in the suburbs, they don't want to stand out. But for the types of properties that I was renovating, then you said to me, no, we can't make it white and grey and black internally, because it's got to be polarizing, because people that fall in love with what you do will pay more for it, whereas people could go, well, we love it, but there's no way we could live here, and that thins them out very quickly. But yeah, the people that fall in love with it are your premium buyers.
They're the ones who are prepared to pay for it. And your projects are proof of that. I've got others that are as well, but this thing of doing that, and the same comes with the architectural space as well, of going, Well, I'll give you the example. I was with some clients and they said to me, we want a timeless home. Well, how do you create a timeless home? And I said, it's easy. And they just looked at me like, how can it be easy? You know, this is what everybody's always trying to do, is this, how do you make a timeless home? And I said, well, it comes from a couple of things. Look across the water there, see that big Tuscan mansion. And they're like, yeah, we hate it. And I go, yeah, but you know it's Tuscan. You know everything about it is a Tuscan mansion. It's timeless. It was a Tuscan mansion when it was built. It'll be a Tuscan mansion in 100 years. It was a Tuscan mansion in Tuscany 150, 200, 300 years ago. It is timeless. So the fastest way, if you want to create something timeless, is actually pick on something that has pedigree.
Yes.
Yeah. And then obviously when their conversation finished there, it went, how do we have something that's modern and timeless? I go, now you need to be brave.
Yes.
And what's your appetite? Yeah.
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 But that's that thing. And that's why, again, with you, it's very easy. You get the market segments and you can play like this here, you play like this here, you play like this here. And meeting where your segment is playing in the right genre. Too often people try and play here or sort of mid-range when they're in low range. And or they'll try and go high range and low range, and they'll overspend and they'll get themselves into trouble with there's no profit left because they had to have these things. You know, they didn't look for the creative solution.
Yeah. And you've got to always look at, with my photography, with development, who's the client?
Yes.
And even when I'm entering photography competitions, who's the client? So the client is actually a judge.
Right.
And what's the competition about? You know, do your research of what's the genre of what they're looking for? You know, like the Moran.
Who's won previously?
Won previously, the Archibald Prize. So there's not so much a formula to it, but you've got to put in stuff that's appropriate for who you're working for.
I always think of it like this. If you were going to the mountain, you'll dress to be on the mountain. If you're going to the city and it's say you're going to Miami, you'll dress to be in Miami. If you're going to a farm, you will dress, you know, appropriateness to the environment that you're in. So if you're in business, or if you're in a competition, or if you're in any of these things, appropriateness to what the environment is a lead point of where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean you've got to be boring in it. It means you've actually got to stand out, but still be appropriate to what you're doing, you know, being in the right marketplace. I want to go back to helicopter pilot.
Yes.
Because
the dots of life.
You just couldn't get around any other way. What was the go? What was the challenge?
I'll try and make it a really quick dots of life. So I'd always been interested in aviation. So when I was 22 and I went, oh, why don't I open a chain of studios all over regional Queensland? I'll get my pilot's license and fly between them. Then someone suggested I should get some business advice on that as a 22-year-old. And I went, okay, sure. So I rang this guy in country Victoria. He had 5 studios. He drove between them. And after I'd finished talking to him for an hour, I went, okay, thank you. No, don't think I'll do that. And so that was very good research. But I'd always been interested, hung around friends that were pilots. My older brother loved aviation. And then I won Australian Professional Photographer of the Year, which was a really cool gig. And Kodak, remember them? They sponsored my award and said I could go anywhere I wanted in the world for a study trip. Would I like to go to America and study with Annie Leibovitz? I said no.
Annie who?
I know. When I tell this at lectures now, people go, you got to go with Annie Leibovitz? And I go, yeah. And then I said no. And they went, okay. Yeah. Anyhow, I decided to go to Antarctica. I had to fly to South America, get on a Russian icebreaker, go to Antarctica. And so that was really cool. Had an exhibition when I got back. But at Sydney Airport, on my way to Antarctica, I met a guy called Ross Harrison. And a long story short, but anyhow, he's now my husband. And at the time, he owned a helicopter. So he said, well, you're flying with me all the time and you're asking all these questions. Do you want to have a go at the controls? Yes. And so eventually he said, well, why don't you just get your license? And oh, okay, really? Oh, cool. And that opened up a whole new world in my photography as well, because aerial photography was well before drones, but I could actually see the landscape from here, like the Aboriginal artists see it.
Yeah.
Painting it. And Central Australia actually looks like a dot painting from a helicopter. It's amazing. And so that opened up a whole new level of photography. Then I started printing my photos onto fabric, making neckties, scarves, leggings, stuff with my aerial photos. Ended up with an exhibition in New York, volunteering back in Central Australia with the Aboriginal community and the artists. Ended up with an exhibition in Paris. So I just keep calling it the dots of life. So you just never know.
The tapestry. The tapestry. Yeah. It's fabulous. And I love the fact that, like you share whatever you do. You're happy to share that out. Like, you say you start making leggings, you start making scarves, you start doing these things with your work and give people an opportunity of ways to have them. I have the little red in your back and your fake background, but it's not fake. It's from the studio, photograph of the studio, but the little red box that's got a most amazing book of Aboriginal elders. Yeah. And photography. It's absolutely fantastic. And I bought a bunch of them and gave them to people for presents. And amazing, especially for, people who love what, the First Nations people here have done with their art and everything else and their stories behind the people. It's, beautiful gift. Really, really beautiful gift. So then you've got this multifaceted life that you live now. And with that multifaceted life that you live now, photography, you could easily probably give that away and just live off what you do with development. But financially, it's what percentages of time do you kind of spend doing what, and what different pieces of the passion puzzle that it gives you? What happens there? What with that photography, and then you've got development, and then you've got doing the fashion design, and you've got the travel part of what you do as well. Just all these different slices of life that you do. What does it take?
So there's no such thing for me as a work-life balance. I do try to have at least one whole day off about every 3 weeks. That seems to work. And my secret sauce is a power nap at lunchtime.
Yeah, a little snooze.
20 minutes, power nap. And so as long as I get that in, I can go off for another shift. So I can literally kind of do 2 shifts a day. So that's how I fit it all in. But it has to be fitting my mantra in life, which is to make the world a better and more beautiful place. So with my photography, it has to be beautiful, has to be fitting what the customer wants from it. Why are they having a portrait created and captured? And so as long as I fulfill that brief, I've kept them happy and made it a better place for them and beautiful, because people often have no clue of what beauty they have inside of them. And my portraits are not just a record of your physical features, but also what do you want to say to the world that's in here? And I dig around inside their heads and quite often.
So can you give us a bit of your process?
Yes.
Because you are a master at this, and you do exactly what you just said. You bring photography always amazes me. The fact that two good photographers could photograph exactly the same subject at exactly the same time, and they will get a different mood out of just the nuances. Some people see into the people and some people see the people. I don't get it.
Yep. So when I'm sitting talking to people, so there was a beautiful lady. So my car's got photo number plates. So, locally, that's who it is. And there was a lady when I got back to my groceries one day standing there looking at my car, and she's going, "Are you the photographer from down the road?" Yes. And I've always wanted I guess she's in her 70s. I've always wanted a portrait taken, blah, blah. And so I said, "Oh, lovely, here's my card, give me a call. And so she came in for the consultation, and she'd always wanted a portrait. She had a husband. She did not want to be photographed with him. This was about her. She'd finally kind of said, I'd always wanted to do this ever since I was 20, never did. And it's time. Right. And in my head, I had this weird little voice going on inside my head going, ask her if she wants a nude. Ask her if she wants a nude. And I'm going, and I'm having this whole debate with myself inside my head. Well, I'm trying to talk to her about what she'd like. And is this for herself? Is she going to hang it on the lounge room wall? Is it for a gift for her children? Is it for her husband? So we're getting, anyhow, I went, oh, what's to lose? You know, she's just going to
Put
say
it
yes.
out there.
So I went, have you ever considered having a nude portrait? And she went really quiet, did not say anything. And I went, don't speak, don't speak, don't speak.
Who speaks loses.
Finally, she said, I've always wanted to have one. And it was just such a beautiful moment. So then I went off on this whole other tangent. How about we do this? And what about that? And yeah. So we created a nude for her. She was in her 70s. It was so cool.
That's so cool. So cool. And that's just earning their trust and probably bundling them up with enthusiasm as well, and with surety, and with, that they're in the right place at the right time.
And also I talked to them about, this is the picture I have in my head of you. How does that, sit with you? Does that, and if they're visual or auditory or feeling type people, use those words with them for good communication. But I'm always checking, is this comfortable? Are you happy if I do this? What about this for an idea? And when you're pushing up against their boundaries because you watch their face.
It's the same as designing a house for someone.
There you go. Yeah.
You're looking for the twinkle in their eyes, that photography thing again, like the eyes alive. And what does it take to find that piece in somebody? And so I'll be sitting, I call it fishing. I'll be sitting with clients and fishing, and I'm just, maybe this, maybe not. I don't know. I've done it with you plenty of times. I fish, and next thing that twinkle goes through your eye, and you go, oh, okay, you saw that bit of bait go past. So, but what is that? Why? What was it that, and what thought did it spark? Doesn't even matter whether the thought was relevant to here, if it was something that was a memory or it was somewhere else, and it's not even about your project. What did it do? Because in there is an anchored memory or an anchored vision that it touched you. And then we know that piece of bait is live at that point. So then really what we're trying to do is discover how important it is in the hierarchy. It's sort of like saying, have you ever considered, having a nude? Yeah, like it's not that you do it with everybody, but if you didn't give the opportunity, that would have passed.
Yeah,
with her maybe not having the confidence.
Yeah, but it can be as simple as, there's a lady she was adult, booked in her adult parents for a portrait, adult brothers and sisters. So they all came in, we did all the groups and everything. And then I said to her right at the end, I said, can I just actually do a photograph of you on your own? Sure. And I said, I've just got this picture inside my head, and I want you kind of walking towards me with casting a shadow onto the white background, so it becomes part of and the story I need to tell is that you're walking forward and from your past or into your new life. And as I was describing the picture inside my head, she burst into tears, and I went, oh, okay. Sorry, tell me what's going on. I have no idea other than this picture. And so her husband had passed away, and this was literally her new life. And it's like, I've learned to have to say it because,
it's an energetic exchange, and that energetic exchange is, as you say, you've learned to speak up because there's a message in it.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I can't let go of that side of who I am and what I do. I've also started painting portraits. So that's really fun. Using a kitchen spatula, because photography is kind of so smooth, but I always put texture and lighting in my photographs anyhow. But yeah, here I am standing. And weirdly, because I've been out in the desert with the Aboriginal artists who paint from an aerial perspective sitting on the ground, I've actually started painting with the canvas flat on the table. I went,
right, rather than up. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Osmosis as well as, I kind of watched. That was interesting. Yeah, but with property, I can drive down the street and just instantly see what it should look like, what it should have. And so that highly visual skills. And then it's just about the work to get it done in the right timeline and stay in budget, because there's always a budget.
And you're aiming at a sales price. There's a margin, and you've got to aim at that sales price.
Even if it's for ourselves.
Yes. No, 100%.
But yeah. And so the joy that property brings me is that it's got to be beautiful and functional, because over the years I've seen some shocking designs that are really beautiful and fancy, even in hotels. Everywhere I travel, I love photographing hotel rooms, and I particularly love cruise ship rooms.
Oh, really?
Fascinated with how much they can fit into a tiny little space. Like, really, it's just a couple of bedrooms stuck together and a couple of bathrooms. That's it. But you can live in there for a week or two quite happily. But the lighting and the cleverness of the design and the detail. And so last time we came home from a cruise, I actually rang up the electrician and I went, "So can you just change our bathroom lighting for me, please?"
Yeah.
Because I need a little sensor light here, and here. And I need a little LED light tucked underneath the beautiful step in our bathroom on the tiles. So it didn't look Las Vegas, but it looked glamorous.
Yes. As you say, like the amount of curation in those small spaces, like boats, I reckon it'd be really fun to do some planes, to fit off some planes. Boats, you don't have such an equation with weight, especially on big boats. So, you work in with a naval architect, and weight is a fact, but it's not a big factor. But planes, I used to work with Airbus.
Okay.
Planes are very much a weight scenario, and for every reason that they exist. And so with that, getting beauty and I suppose excitement into a cabin without overloading the weight load on it as well.
Yeah, well, aircraft come with a whole nother weight and balance certification from CASA and everyone else that's got to certify them. So yeah, if you go varying too far out of paint, leather colors, color schemes, that's a whole different ballpark. But yeah, there's really cool. In America, we've been involved with Cirrus Aircraft, and so the high-end customers custom order their aircraft paint color schemes and interior colors.
Yeah, which I think would be absolutely fabulous fun to go, okay, here's my restrictions are high, so then what can I do with it again? I've got these really tight boundaries, and it's not just weight, but weight's a big one. And then how much of it can you do? I remember when I worked with Airbus, we were doing something, and it was to do with the A380 at the time, and just the calculations of paint load, depending on what your aircraft is, but not your aircraft, what your brand is, and where the paint weights are sitting. And the plane can carry it. That's not the issue. It's just what does it take to make it do it. And just little things like that. You go, oh, right. You're kind of counting the threads of carpet and, the screws in the seats. And I joke, but they are,
Yeah, all got to be accounted for.
Yeah. It's pretty fascinating. Where boats is a little broader.
Yeah.
I imagine the bigger the boat, the broader it gets. And you certainly look at what they do, like you're saying, cruise ships, the opulence in cruise ships, and it's incredible.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. So I get the reason for the photography business really well, because it actually uses another whole part of your creative intuition. It allows you to see right into people, and it's a touch like not a physical touch, but a touch that I think it's one of the things I enjoy about designing houses, custom homes is, oh no, I shouldn't say I think it is. I know it is. It's one of the most joyful pieces is learning the people. It's yours would be more like speed dating, where mine's like, a short relationship. But yeah, you get to unearth people over the time, and then you get to curate the design more custom for them as you unearth, as that happens. And yours is like, as I said, a bit more like speed dating. They come, they do their consultation, then they come and get photographed, and they've got these couple of touches. What do most people come and get photographed for? What's the most common reason somebody comes and gets a portrait?
If they're a family, it's to document the family at this age of their life, and that's quite often as young babies is an touch point. Teenagers before they leave home is the next kind of milestone, and then the adult families that have now got 3 or 4 generations, and the grandparents or great grandparents are getting aged, so that's a milestone. So yeah, I've got literally clients that I've photographed 3 and 4 generations now. It's really exciting.
It's pretty neat, isn't it?
So, and then women will come on their own to be photographed, often will tell you for their partner, boyfriend, husband, male or female, either these.
Yeah.
But generally they're getting photographed for themselves, for their own self-esteem. And so that's why I dig around with, what do you want to actually say to the world that the world doesn't know about you?
Mm.
If you could write a piece of paper, if you could open your heart and go, under here is an S, super girl. No, but yeah.
So what would you ask me? Oh, you go tell me what men do. Yeah.
So men rarely come in on their own. It's mostly the women that come in, and the men will come if they're a couple, and then I'll photograph the man on his own in his completely own energy. Oh, it's a really cool story. This older couple, I said, if you could only bring one thing with you to sum up your personality, what would it be? And they sit there and they go, we have no idea what you're even talking about. And I went, well, I'm an artist, so I would bring my beret. It's one thing I can bring, and it's an international symbol. As an artist, I would bring my beret. But, we've had other people bring their favorite book, a teddy bear, wine glass, favorite, all that kind of thing. So I start throwing out ideas. Anyhow, she said she was going to bring her handwritten recipe book that she'd had since a teenager, and she was in her 80s. And I looked at him and he went, my dad was a wood chopper. And I go, I think of the Nambour show of, wood choppers. Yeah. And I went, oh, this is going to be fun. So anyhow, in she comes with this beautiful recipe book. And I said, open the recipe book at what your children ask you to make when they come and visit you. Neenish tarts and this beautiful handwriting. So I actually photographed the book with her sitting there with her pearls and her twin set. And then unbeknownst to her, when I do the production of the photo, I actually layer the recipe over the top of the photo.
Right.
So it tells the story twice.
I love it.
Yes. And then, so I said to him, so what did you bring for your personality item? Oh, it's out in the car. And so then she's going, you didn't talk to me about this. What did you bring? And so in he comes with his axe.
Wow.
And so he had a photo of his grandfather with as a wood chopper with the white singlet. He brought in the white singlet. He had the axe, everything. So we actually digitally projected the photo of his grandfather into the background of the photo of him standing there with the axe over his shoulder. So it was like totally his story, his life's journey. 3 generations were embraced into this one photograph. And yeah, so of course it's framed, hanging up on their lounge room wall now with the Neenish tarts and my granddad's old wood chopper.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, look, if like I'm doing, while I'm trying to listen to you, I'm going, what the hell would I bring? That's one question. And, who would the photo be for? And I imagine like lots of listeners are doing this right at this point. And they're going, so what would I take? What would be the thing that defines me if it was one thing that defines me or one thing that I want to define me? And then the other is who's the photograph for? Who am I taking this photograph for? I suppose most people ultimately are taking it for themselves. So what would you ask me other than what would I bring?
I've already got the thing in my head for you.
Right.
So I can
Right.
see.
So is it whether I can guess?
Well, I'll just say it. So it's your pencil, because you use a particularly fat, big, thick pencil with lead.
I use a Norris pencil usually. Is
Yeah.
that the one? The yellow and black one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I use that. And otherwise, if I don't use
You're
that, I
always
use a little old Bic pencil. Yeah.
also, you've gone modern and using it on your sketchpad, digital
Yeah.
sketchpad.
Yeah. That one's the digital one, but I have a Norris one just exactly the same. Staedtler
Yeah.
Mars Norris pencil.
Yeah.
Mm.
But, it says about your writing, about your design, about the way you document things.
It's funny you say that because a pencil, I love a pencil. My father was a fine artist, or he is. He doesn't paint or do art anymore. He's 96 with Alzheimer's, but he was a fine artist. And as a kid, he would tell us, you don't hold a pencil like that. That's not how you hold a pencil. You need to hold a pencil like this. And we would, he was pretty strict about it. And then also the thing is you don't need more than an HB. You put those other things away. You only need an HB. When you've learned how to use an HB, you can learn how to use something else. And that was all about pressure and angle and line and what you can do with a single pencil when you actually use it like a tool. It's not just I want to say blunt instrument. It's not just that. It is all these different things, how blunt you let it get, how much shade you can pull off the side of it, how much point you can put on it, and all these things. And so I think with a pencil. When I'm designing, I'm thinking with a pencil, I'm playing with a pencil. Probably I would love to say it was natively learned. It was drummed into me by my father about how you hold it and how you can work with a pencil for a number of hours. Like you need to be able to work with a pencil for 8 hours, would be my dad. He would say, you might never put that down in the whole day. Your hand has to be able to work. You need to be able to work. Your pencil isn't just run by fingers. It's run by a hand. It's run by an arm, how you get expressive with it. And so I take your point with the pencil because it's a thinking tool for me as much as it is a delivery tool. There you go.
Well, yeah.
I on the TV show, so on Dream Homes Revealed, I went, first thing I did was I want a signature that so I will stand out. Or stand out differently from the others. So I went to the production company and the producers and said, look, I'd really like to wear a Stetson open road on the show. And so a Stetson open road, it's the head of artists and outlaws and presidents, and it's made to be able to drive in a car or a truck. It's not a big cowboy hat. And I said, I'd really like to use that as a signature. And they were like, yeah, well, you can see how it goes with the shooting. And if they tell you not to put it on, don't put it on, da, 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 da. So the first show we shot, I didn't take one. The first show we shot was actually it was an audition. So they said, we think you can do it. We'll audition you to do it. And, go along, do the show. So they were confident enough that I wouldn't screw it up, or they could get enough information and then the guys could cut around it. So the next show, then I asked if I could wear a hat and they were like, yep, sure, give it a go. And other than continuity, which it's a pain in the ass, so I pretty much leave it on, which was kind of my intent all the way along anyway. But I went, okay, I've got one signature, I'm going to have another. So I started taking a Norris pencil with me. And so the poor buggers editing my segments were dealing with a hat on, a hat off. Sometimes it was on the bench. Then he had a pencil in his hand here. Then he had it in this hand. Sometimes it was in his pocket. And one of the camera guys said to me, look, if they were shooting you constantly the whole time and there was no continuity needed because it was all recorded. One of the cameramen goes one day, this was, I think, the second time I used it. He goes, they're going to hate you in production post. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, that pencil, 1 minute it's in this hand, next minute it's in that hand. Why don't you just put it in your pocket? And I went, yeah, you know what? I'll just work with the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about I do that? Just keep it a little more simple for the guys. But, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because once you said pencil, I could go down my rabbit hole, and it took me back to my father. It took me back to being a kid. It took me back to the discipline of using it well. And then it always makes me think a pencil, you know, the famous story about the Russians and the Americans going to space, and NASA spent millions of dollars on the pen, and the Russians turned up we can write upside down with this, and in a weightless environment, you'll never get it. So my next question is I want to know about what you're going to do next. So you obviously keep doing photography, you do your development. What's on the bucket list of passion things that you're going to do in the next 5 years?
So I'd like to build a children's hospital for charity.
Nice. Whereabouts?
Is that Cambodia?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've traveled in Africa and Cambodia doing charity work. So either of those. At the moment, we're looking at Cambodia. They're both challenging environments with the third world issues, with poverty, with corruption, with all of the challenges, the environment. And so I've got like a working model inside my head of what it might look like. And initially it was building pods to put together. So maybe just start with something as simple as a clinic. And then once we've worked out the system to make that work, so it gets complicated very quickly because you've got to staff them with, and we want to really make everything sustainable in the local community. Mm-hmm. So I've actually just started working with an existing medical clinic that I visited last time I was in Phnom Penh.
Yeah.
And this week, they get their first shipment of equipment delivered to them. So some new birthing beds, some hospital beds. They didn't even have baby cribs. So after you give birth, I'm lost in translation, but I don't know where the baby.
So what happens?
Yeah, so I went, oh, okay. And because you're working with an interpreter in a very rural, tiny village, a lot of it, I think, was getting lost in interpretation. So I just had to do my best visually to see what the need was. And is it okay if we send you some equipment? And they all beamed at me and nodded. So I assumed that that's okay.
And that it will happen, I guess.
So back to logistics, actually buying medical equipment in one country, getting it shipped to another country, customs, freight, forwarding. Is the company I'm paying dollars to buy equipment, are they reputable? How do I know it's going to work? So keep asking lots and lots of questions.
I've got a guy I'm going to put you in touch with. There's a fabulous, very highly intense Australian called James Bartle. And James came on the podcast, goodness, early, about 2020, somewhere around there. He came on the podcast and I was introduced to him. So he started out as a motocross stunt rider. So doing those shows, you know, he's an intense human being. And he went and saw the movie Taken with Liam Neeson with his wife, and he has his own children, and he got in the car afterwards. It really moved him. He's like, does that really happen? You know, is that true? And went home. Him and his wife did some research, and his wife did even more research. And he said, well, if that's happening, we need to do something about it. We can't let this happen. It can't carry on. The world can't carry on this way. And over the next few years, he worked out how, and did this research again, fantastic research, fantastic human. And he started a company called Outland Denim. And there's plenty of people around the world that will go, oh, Outland Denim. Yes, I've heard of that. You know, English royal family, some of them wear Outland Denim, etc., etc. It is all made in Cambodia. It is all made to take, or the premise of it is to take girls out of sex slavery. And they make jeans for other companies as well, and Outland Denim is their brand. He's on the Gold Coast, and as I say, an intense and amazing human being, but he will be someone who knows Cambodia and the systems in Cambodia so well that I will put you together with people who make a difference. Yeah. Like his stories incredible, and what he's managed to do and has done is incredible. And he will know the path through so many things. Yeah. The joy of connection, I suppose that is, it makes all the difference. So
Yeah.
with the hospital or the clinic, I'm actually involved in another group of people who are doing one in Africa, in Uganda. And so there could be some synergies there with people that I can introduce you to as well. And I know Peter fairly well, who is the guy who runs the one in Uganda. But again, it is very, very heavily funded from the Sunshine Coast
Yeah.
as a thing.
That model. I came across an accountant in Sydney, which was really interesting at one of my seminars that I endlessly go to. And he talked about business philanthropy. So he actually buys accountancy businesses and then carves up, makes them profitable, turns them around if they're just smaller operations, systemizes them, and then pledges their profitability to charity. So his company actually builds schools and hospitals in Africa as well. And so he said there's so much donor fatigue, which is a really big issue, constantly having to ask for more money. And he said, so if you give a charity $1 million, say, so after the year or two, when they've used it up, where are you going to get the next $1 million from to keep them operational? And so then either the charity folds or you've got to just then become a fundraiser. And I go, yeah, that's probably not my best skill. Like I want to stick to what's my highest and best use. And so we're with this business model, investigating that. So actually looking at buying a business that I can systemize and
sustainably operate.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And of course, the charity Raw Impact, who are the group that I'm working through in Cambodia. And Troy was quite blunt with me and he said, yeah, great idea, Robyn. Come back to me when you've worked out how to make it ongoing, even if you're not there.
Yeah, right. Remove you from the picture, full leverage.
That was quite a tough thing to be told. And I went, hang on, but what about all the good I'm going to do? And I went, yeah, no, actually, he's right.
Yeah. Like as soon as you step back one step and you go, that makes sense. But yes, there's a lot of attachment to when you create something, to how something should happen. And it's like create a child. The child grows up to be its own child. You create a business, it morphs into what it's going to be as the market and the environment change around it. Like what I started 20 something years ago as this business is nothing. It's similar. We still design houses, but it's nothing like what it was back then. And I'm nothing like I was back then. Like I've had 20 something years of growth in doing things, and that thing happens with these, the only way to survive is to move forward and to grow and to evolve. And I see that with that kind of thing as well. And often that's where committees kind of stifle, because there isn't a leader that charges through or pushes through with the vision.
Yeah. Of, what's possible, or how can we, or who do we talk to, or, well, if that's the problem, is there 5 different solutions that we can look for, and let's see which one would maybe work the best.
It's the block of flats also, isn't it? Like a single one flat or one apartment. Yeah, it stops paying rent. The rent's finished, but 4, you've got width in the game, and having a single funding source versus, like the other guy's saying, he's got multiple accounting companies. That's the model. We're going to be using accountants for a long time yet in professional services. So taking a piece of the action and putting it there makes perfect sense to it. So if somebody wants to get to help you with this, or to get information or be involved and help accelerate this journey, or actually maybe not even accelerate it because you're a fast-moving train yourself, but give you support in whether it's financial support in the greater picture or whether it's resource support in another picture, what do they do? One of the things, I've got a friend, Andrew Purdy, who has got a podcast called The Hidden Philanthropist. And he said often where people struggle the most is in how to give. It's not that they don't want to give, it's how to give. and how do we get, what do they need and how do we get that?
Yeah. It's a really good point, because quite often the easiest way to give is give money. Whereas if you actually give of yourself and physically go there and, build a house out of bamboo and put it together and work side by side with the people that you're building the house for, then they get something. Like last year, the homeowner worked side by side with me. And one day he said to me, "Very good." What? Where'd that come from? And then I realized how many times when I showed him how to do something or asked him how to show me how to do something, I said, "Very good."
Right.
And then he one day said, "1, 2, 3." And I went, 4, 5, 6. And then he went, 7, 8, 9. And I went, "Okay, I can see how this works."
Yeah.
So giving money is important because you can buy supplies and materials that they can't afford for
It's an
themselves.
enabler. Yeah.
Yeah. And, the actual currency is important, but being there and working with them and actually understanding the culture. And I always say, not just turning up with my eyes of how I see the world, but how can I see the world through their eyes, and what do they need, and what could I do to help them the most, not just give what I think they should have.
Yes. Yes.
Like if I turn up with a soccer ball for the kids, because wouldn't that be a nice thing to do? Bring a soccer ball for the kids. We can play that at lunchtime. And we do. But then when the organizer said to us, "Please take the soccer ball back in the bus with you," I went, "To the kids." And he went, "Well, we don't want you to be seen as the people who turn up with gifts. We want them to be building a community for themselves. Yes, we're helping them, but also then a little bit of jealousy could break out. Which one child are you going to give a soccer ball to?"
Yeah. Yeah. Who's going to be the keeper of it?
So all of these issues that we just turning up going, "Oh, here, we're here to help." You've got to think through multiple levels of that. And last time I took sets and sets of colouring in pencils, because I felt pens will just die and then that'll be plastic thrown on the ground, which is not good for the environment. So I always try and think through what's a sustainable thing to take. So I took sets of colouring in pencils and 6 pencil sharpeners, and I gave the pencil sharpeners to the teacher. And then I said, "How would you like to go about distributing these pencils? Either, you keep them for a set, the kids get to use them on art day." And she went, "No, they can come and they could choose 2 pencils each."
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I looked around the room and these kids were collaborating. They were trading their colors. They were working together. "Can I just have your blue for a minute? You can have my red." It was a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And yeah, you're teaching them a sense of community, and you're teaching them, to share in the value, and a cultural shift with that. But within their culture, it's not like come and do it all our way.
But even us, like, what can we learn from only having 2 of something? Do we need 18 set of colored pencils in our set? We can use all the people that are on our team. Like as the pilot, we have a thing called CRM, Crew Resource Management. And so who's on your team? You don't actually have to do everything yourself. You can't do everything yourself. So who are you going to ask for help? Delegate to, use their skills, go, "Oh, I need some help over here. Can someone come and help me?" Yes. So all gratefully accepted. Please send them my way.
Yeah, well, what we'll do is when we post the podcast, we'll obviously post how you get in touch with you as well. That'll be on the Talk Design website, which is talkdesign.show. And yeah, if this feels right for your heart and soul, and you would love to jump on with a fast-moving train like Robyn, who will bring an endless amount of excitement and passion into the sphere of your life, jump in and go for it, and get in and enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey, because there's so much fun to be had. I'm going to do one last thing with you here, and there's so many cool things from your story and the journey that you've taken, and the things that your legacy that you're leaving behind on the planet as well. This, the legacy play of these people with, their photos and those things that end up being in places. So I've got to tell one little story. I was with Marlon Blackwell, some Marlon Blackwell architects, and we were in a home that he had designed. And in this home, it was it's in Arkansas anyway. In this home, beautifully curated architecture upstairs, and there were two pieces downstairs that kind of anchored the bottom of the home. And one on the left was like a storage kind of thing, it had some storage equipment and stuff like, the lawn kind of stuff. And then the one on, if you're looking out of the house, that was on the bottom left. And then on the bottom right, you went down outside and there was another room. And this room was the clients had turned it into a speakeasy. So it had this really groovy music playing and all the rest. And what they decorated the walls with, which was, I've got a video of this, it was just amazing. They, how people's portraits, whether it be a photograph, whether it be a painting, these people are forgotten at some point. Their family line dies out, or nobody wants great grandma's picture or whatever it is. And with that, these guys he's involved in Crystal Bridges Museum in Arkansas there, which is very, very famous building and very famous museum. And he goes and they go to like car boot sales, these kind of things, flea markets, and they find amazing portraits. And they have lined the walls of the speakeasy with all these portraits of people who are gone and forgotten. And they bring their friends in there to drink with their greater community of people. These people will never be forgotten. They'll be immortalized in there in a world of partying. And that's so fun, eh?
Yeah. And another thing that I do with my portraits is on the back of the portrait, I actually do a full didactic documentation of who is the portrait of, the date of birth, the date it was photographed, where they were photographed, where they live. So in 50 years' time, when the family is standing around, I think this is great grandma so-and-so, they can just flip it over and it's actually got a full history on the back of it.
That. I worked with, when I was in fashion design, I worked with a lady just helping her out with some things, like she made wedding dresses, and she would take the inside bodice of a wedding dress and it would be the most beautiful internally, and it would tell stories internally. So sometimes beaded, sometimes painted on silks, all these things. So when you actually, if say that wedding dress was passed down to you or whatever, the original wearer's story is inside the wedding dress, only for them to be seen. It's not for everybody, it's for them.
Yeah, wow, beautiful.
Always reminds me, like when you said that thing, it's like that thing. So I want to do this process with you, Robyn. It's called perfect.
Oh.
And
we all know I'm not perfect.
It's not about you being perfect. It's about you being you, and you're perfectly you. So what I want to do is, this is part of the thing that I do with the emotional floor plan, and we'll give people insight into, understanding human behavior. So can you describe for me your perfect day, and just choose a day of the week when you do it, and what would your perfect day be or look like? And we'll say that you're going to, if it's something in the future, you're going to start it tomorrow or next week. It's Friday here, so let's go next week. And if it is you already have a routine that makes a perfect day, you might want to tell me that. You choose. Just go tell me which one it is. I'm not guessing.
No, so I have written down previously my perfect day, so I'm working towards it. I would like to wake up when I wake up, not to an alarm clock. I currently wake up to an alarm clock because I've got to fit so much into my day.
Mm-hmm. What time would that be?
7, 8 o'clock would be nice. Just wake up and then go for my either walk, gym, or swim down the beach.
What would be the perfect one?
Perfect one would be a walk and then a swim in the ocean.
Cool.
Home for brekkie.
What would be breakfast?
I really love cereal with fruit and yogurt. Healthy. Nice. And then, so I'd like to kind of get, while I'm full of energy, get my business stuff done for the day, maybe looking at some property deals, maybe doing some organizing, like going to the framer, picking up stuff for delivery, that type of stuff. Then lunch, power nap, 20 minutes.
So we need to slow down a bit. So the reason I'm going to do that, I want more depth, is so you'd walk, swim, walk and a swim, and I don't, every day doesn't have to be the same. This is just picking perfect. Like if you could do this every day, it'd be Groundhog Day and you'd get bored or you'd get frustrated by it. It would become too repetitive. What it is like when I look at this, I go to wake up when you wake up. I said to you, what time? I was playing with you. It's to see whether you've got a time, but it's to wake up when you wake up. And it's at your choice and your leisure.
And sometimes I now, but that might be at 2 a.m.
Sure.
And I literally do get up then because I refuse to lie in bed and think there's so many things to do. I literally just get up and go to work.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Which is good. And then the point around the exercise piece as well. But then what do you get out of walking on, say, the beach versus somewhere else?
I like walking on a walking track, like a path. So walk with purpose for some exercise, as well as clarity of mind, clarity of vision. Like I'll often bats around a bunch of stuff, and sometimes I think people are looking at me because then I realize I'm actually talking out loud to myself. But there's something in the process that helps me when I actually say it out loud. I hear it as if it's from someone saying it back to me. And that's really helpful because quite often I'll be walking around the house and I'll go blah, blah, blah. And there needs to actually be 3 pieces. Oh, actually, no, if I cut them into 4 and actually if I turn them the other way, okay, then, right.
The verbalized thought process, yeah.
Yes, so I've problem solved out loud, yeah.
And then the other part of it is often when you're in motion, it's kind of like your body is, it's in motion, it's doing something, it's using up some of its capacity in your brain, and it's got a busyness. That means that this busyness can get more chopped and focused.
Maybe get a rhythm going to it.
Probably. And then swimming in the ocean. Why the ocean?
Well, I'm a bit spoiled because we have a pool that I can swim laps in, and I quite often do. The ocean, you've got to time that a little bit more carefully, high tide, low tide, what's the weather like? Whereas when the pool, I can just kind of go any day that's nice-ish. If it's a really lousy day, I go to the gym. So ocean is a bit more about paying more attention to your environment, more respect to nature. And but I like the salt water. I think it's really nice. So I need to live nearby, obviously.
Yeah, which suits you because you do. But that also is giving you another thing in there, that ocean piece of it. It's feeding you in another way, and it's making you more conscious of your environment and things like that as well. And then the breakfast piece, what happens? Your breakfast is probably pretty much out of the fridge and maybe out of a fruit bowl and the cupboard. It's not cooked.
Like Sunday breakfast, we'll have, poached eggs and crispy bacon, raisins. Yeah. That's not an everyday thing.
Yes, right. And then with breakfast, so let's say you do your fruit and your cereal, or whether you've done do the fruit and cereal one first. What do you do then? What do you do with it? Not eat. I want to know where you eat it, where you prep it.
On our beautiful bench top. Yep. Prep it on the bench. Then I will go and sit at the table and look at the view, or I'll go and sit outside and look at the view. But if we're home together, quite often the TV gets turned on and we're sitting at the bar watching it together, watching the morning news, which is fine.
Out of that, if you were choosing what was perfect, which piece would you choose?
Sitting outside watching the view.
You outside. And I won't go through the rest of the day. I'll stop you there with it. But we would do this in a much longer stream than this, just understanding what would make it perfect, what would make it perfect. And then we would look into, your habitual pieces, what time Ross gets up as opposed to what time you get up, those kinds of things as well. What are the routines that are happening in the house? And then we start to think about what the design of the space and the architecture of the space, the spatial awareness of it and all that, what would happen in that to support this perfect routine. And breaking it down into the kind of detail gives us different ways of supporting, making that space support you, like the the view outside and removing yourself from the inside to that to feel nature again. It's like the difference between the pool and the beach and the water, and the difference between the path and say the sand. The path gives you, a bit more surety, a bit more, and then you can mind range, and that if you can put these things into your day, that it sets it up as a perfect day. It sets it up with every ability to win going forward for you and for people around you. And so then I want to ask you, in your home, what is your favorite space? Before we do no, we'll do this next piece first and write myself a note. In your home, what's your favorite space?
So out on the balcony, so there's a little corner that tucks in against the wind. And
just for context, Robyn lives at the top of a high rise in a penthouse. And looks over the sea, and like a sand island, there's a waterway and a sand island that creates an internal waterway there. So Robyn's home is at the top of a penthouse or top of a building. Is it 10 or 12 stories high? It's not super high. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's not like
hundreds.
Yeah. And it has this beautiful view that on the left hand, if you look out, you can look up to a headland which has got kind of a rocky outcrops and stuff. And then they're kind of golden white sand beaches, not white, but more golden sand beaches. And if you look to the right, you get a long view, which actually has some islands well placed down in there, which is Bribie Island and these things. And this is known as the start of the Pumastone Passage, which takes the ships into Brisbane Port, which is at Rivermouth. And so it's got a bit of action that happens there. You see the ships lining up. It's a absolutely stunning part of the Sunshine Coast. So that gives you context of what we're talking about. Robyn might have a few photos she could show us of that, because I forgot to get her to share her photos. But with that, this gives you a sort of a sense of when she says she sits on her balcony, she will have often, there'll be a slight southerly breeze coming, so she can tuck herself in a corner there and be out of the wind and take it all in. So context there. So favorite space is on the balcony with your back tucked up against the wall.
Yeah.
Why is that your favorite space?
Because I can just go out there on my own. I can take a bunch of pillows, a blanket if it's a cool day, my hat and sunglasses and a sarong if it's a hot day. Very sun aware. It's Queensland.
Yeah.
So out of the sun. It's just a little private spot that if there's other people in the house, they often don't think to look for me there, and I can have my own little space.
If you had to have one emotional word to sum up that space for you and how you feel when you're in that space, what's the word?
Peace, I guess. Peace.
And if it's peace, when you get to have peace, what does that mean you can do, or how does that serve you?
So it's my own space. So I can do whatever I like out there. I can go out there and ring up a friend, chatter away, or I can read a book, or I can write like a to-do list or a goal sheet, or I can do it uninterrupted.
And when you get to do things uninterrupted, what does that mean for you?
Progress. Nurtured. Yeah, I feel like I'm nurturing myself. It's good for me to look after me.
Mm-hmm. I often wonder, with these things, so when you nurture yourself that way and it brings you that peace. If you didn't have it, where would you create it? like what it's something that you need as a human. And
if I don't get it there, then I just come to the studio.
right, so you have another escape. Yeah. And we all need escapes. And the escape there is one of the things I picked up from that was it's privacy. It's all by your choice. It's unobserved. It's outside, which go back to the beach and thing, that outside piece of, your life. And it allows you to do things at a different pace. There's less pressure on you.
Yeah.
If that space was to be moved inside, it would become your studio, would it? Again, it's just to have space to yourself.
Yeah, it's just my own personal space, my own bubble.
So when we're looking at an emotional floor plan, I know that we would have peace written on there. And the space, wherever we're designing something, we would be looking for Robyn's space for peace. Like, where does that have to be? And what are the parameters around that? So then what would that, in this case, that space has huge expansiveness, like massive expansiveness. With it having such expansiveness, for some people that might not be intimate enough, but for you, it actually allows you that vision. It allows you to, and it also is, because it's outside, it's dynamic, and that feeds you in some way too. Just like the sea did, swim in the sea, not swim in the pool.
Yeah, I love seeing the clouds, the weather, the rainstorms coming across. So I'll often go and take whichever camera is nearby and just take a photo of the horizon or the clouds or the...
Cool. I like it. I like it. And discovering this in every different aspect of your home can create your full emotional floor plan. And the reason I started off with the perfect day is just to get a sense of your routines and the sense of what you would change it, you would alter it, but it would have those elements in it. And then, so how do those elements interact with living in a home, with your husband? How do those elements interact with the daily pressure of life, and you live a full life, so that daily thing. And then when we look at the other side of it, the peace side of it, where do you get that, and when do you get it? What time does it need to be done? Do you have to have it every day? Do you have to have it every week? What is it? How long can you go without it before somebody tells you to go and take it? That was for you, Ross. But those things are really important. I would love you to close out by showing some photos, and just we'll discuss them as you go. I would really love that. And so if you've just been listening, and you can come on YouTube now, check out Robyn's hair. And then also some of her photography, and this is a development that she's showing here. And the development is a duplex, but the magic is some of her photography. Tell the story.
So I wanted to start embracing art on every one of my projects going forward. And so we proposed this street art, and the council actually rejected it, said I couldn't do it. So I had to go back and be passionate and say it's appropriate. It's the local Indigenous trees that are on the beach, and designed it in such a way that it will just blend and fade with the color theme of the building. The timber will actually blend, and silver as well. And so I'm beautifying the street. I'm bringing art and beauty and function together. And so they agreed. I also had to show them a previous building where I'd put my art on a commercial building in Brisbane. And they went, oh, I said, well, Brisbane approved it, so I'm guessing you guys could. And I didn't want either owner to be responsible for turning the lights on the artwork at night. And so the builder and I designed the LED strip that's very subtle on the top of it. It's also on a solar panel and on a dusk sensor. So at night, it just gently illuminates the photograph.
That's awesome. It's awesome. I know I've been in the scene, and it's lovely to add that piece of you and that piece of the environment from around there. It's great. Oh, goodness.
We're not together. So this was a penthouse apartment I bought at a sheriff's auction.
This is when we met.
Yeah. This is the first project we worked on together. And so it had been abandoned with most of the contents still in the house, in the apartment. It was beachfront, so it was a bit of a no-brainer bidding on the property for the location, but we had no idea it was closed. So I was bidding blind as to what was actually inside. So the sheriff had to come with me on the day of handover. So you have to pay a deposit and pay all your money in 30 days. And then you get to get the door opened by the sheriff. And I went, yes, please come in with me, because we had no idea what might have even been living there. We didn't know. Yeah. So, yeah. And it was a major thing of sorting out what was worth keeping, what was worth working with. Beautiful tile floors in really good condition. So we kept all of them. And then Adrian here taught me about penthouse plush. So it has to be worthy of being a penthouse. So Adrian suggested that we have some gold palm leaves on the wall. And I went, so like wallpaper? And he went, no, no, no. And then so we talked through the process and problem solved. And I ended up getting a lovely local sign writer to design it, and they came and installed it. So we painted it. Adrian chose the color of the paint, which is actually a really dark green if you look very carefully.
Very dark green, yeah.
And so it's this lush jungle tropical. So Adrian also taught me that just because it's on the beachfront, you don't have to be fooled into thinking that you have to have everything blue and white, or that it has to have a beach theme.
Or shells and fish. Yeah. It was a lot of fun, this. It was a very interesting project. It was a lot of fun. Now, this is even better. This I love.
Yep. So this is in Cambodia, and we were put on a team. We were the structures team. So Brian was the builder. He was the one that was qualified. And then beautiful Lisa, she's a psychologist from Brisbane, volunteering. And of course, I have no qualifications except a big vision. And so we were allocated the structures. We had to actually build these posts out of bamboo and bind them all together to the right height to take all of these platforms and everything. And when they were lifting the roof onto our structures, I went,
oh, God.
Okay, moment of truth. Have we done our job well? Yes. So that's why we're celebrating so much. But you can see the conditions that we're working in.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you consider volunteering your time to go with Robyn, just flip through and just check those conditions and make sure that you're up for it, because you're there to help, not there to be helped.
You can also go and help, slice
there's other places
for lunch and stuff like that if you're not up to the physical way. Yeah, that's fine. So this is from the helicopter, a photo of Lake Eyre, and then I've transferred the image to a scarf. So you have wearable art. So Central Australia.
These are so beautiful, these pieces that you've done like this. It's fabulous.
Dots of Life. So this is from my time from volunteering in Central Australia at Yuendamu, a small Aboriginal artist community, right? And you fly to Central Australia, to Alice Springs, then you drive 6 hours northwest into the Tanami Desert, and there's this beautiful community so there's 100 artists that I photographed from there. So the book is a portrait of the artist and then a photograph of their painting and their biography and all the dreaming stories, because they paint their dreaming stories that have been handed down from generations. Yeah.
It's fabulous.
And yes, so this is one of my clients' portraits. She was a fabulous lady, local nurse. She's also volunteered if I need any help with my project, which is lovely. And yeah, I loved that she had a couple of personalities or sides of her personality going on and wanted to portray.
I was about to say she was happy to show them both.
Yeah. And we all have multiple personalities. I'm just probably a bit more open with them, that I have them, and because I see them when I photograph people, that there's the side where she'll look directly into your eyes and be right there with you, and there's also the very shy, quiet person. Don't look at me, I'm just over here on the side. So it says a lot about people.
100%. I love that you've just done that little expose of your genius. And from behind the camera, it is so neat.
So what a connection. I would like to see my work on a billboard in Times Square.
Right. If I don't have a connection, somebody listening, please, a billboard in Times Square. And what would you like that work to be?
I think Sorry, I shouldn't say I think. I can see it's actually one of my aerial landscapes.
Right. Well, Qantas,
Thank you.
there's Qantas, there's an opportunity in that for you. And also, I imagine, like for the galleries and stuff in New York as well, there's those landscapes and then tying that back into your dots of life painting, photography as well, and the paintings that those people produce would be quite a fabulous expose. How exciting. I've had so much fun discussing Robyn with Robyn. And
talking, lots and lots of talking.
yeah, but what a beautiful story. And I love the vision for the future. And I love the fact that you haven't gone, I can't do anything that I set my mind to. And it's a real story of, your story is a story of, I make a decision and I move forward and I take the best of my skills and move forward with those and find the people with the best of their skills that I can put around me to get me to the next step. It's no wonder it's a success story.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to have captured this story, and I'm looking forward to our next lunch or conference or whatever we choose to do. Yeah.
Lovely.
Thanks, Robyn. Take care. We'll post all your socials, all those things on our site. People will know how to get hold of you, and we will talk soon. Thank you for tuning into our conversation. I hope it left you both informed and inspired. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen, and please don't hesitate to share your design thoughts with me. It's always a joy to hear from you. If you're like me and crave a deeper dive into design thinking, coupled with a love for travel and adventure, consider one of my architectural adventures. Join me and some of my wonderful design friends and embark on a journey of a lifetime. Apply for an unforgettable design experience at adrianramsey.com. With our clients spanning the globe, I firmly believe behind every great project are great people. If you're a great person and seeking to turn your dream into a reality, I'd be honored to design your home with you. Why not join the ranks of our exceptional clients and let's make your heart sing? Reach out to me at studio@ardesignhouse.com. That's studio@ardesignhouse.com, and let's get a conversation going and make your heart sing.